the biggest piece of advice that I would share for anybody starting out in this industry, if you're kind of 5 years and under, is it's all about relationships. Relationships are key. Doesn't matter what brokerage you work for, what role you're in, what year of your career you're in, what asset class, it's all about relationships.
Welcome to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Each episode will bring you conversations from business leaders and up-and-coming stars in the commercial real estate industry in Canada. Our guests will share their unique career journeys, passions, and advice on what it takes to be successful in this industry. This podcast is brought to you by Highview Partners, connecting people who perform in Canadian real estate.
I'm your host, Richard Costello, and today I'm pleased to introduce Audrey Powell. Audrey is currently a leasing manager for Aspen Properties in Edmonton, responsible for overseeing the leasing of 3 downtown office towers. Audrey started her career in 2014, working as a tenant coordinator with one of the largest private retail landlords in Edmonton. In 2016, Audrey moved into brokerage, and for the next 3 years, she became an integral part of one of the highest producing, well-respected office leasing teams in Edmonton. In our conversation today, we'll hear more about Audrey's career journey to date, how Aspen Properties stands out from its competition. We'll dive into what a career in leasing looks like in the day-to-day, Audrey's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as her lessons and advice for aspiring real estate professionals. Audrey, first of all, thank you for joining me and welcome to the Real Estate Careers Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Richard. I'm excited to be here.
So, Audrey, you're our first guest on the podcast from Alberta, which is exciting, first of all. And I guess I'd heard about you in December last year. I was at the Real Estate Forum in Toronto, and your boss, Scott Hutchison, who was involved in a panel discussion, had mentioned your name and the work you've been doing at Aspen around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the creation of the Ideas Group, which we'll get into later. And at the closing presentation, you were awarded the Young Leader of the Year award, and I instantly made a note to reach out to see if you'd join me on the podcast. So it's great to have you here with us. Now, congratulations again for that achievement. Just to start off, what can you tell us about that award?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So it was extremely exciting to win that. And so it's an award that's presented through the real estate forums across Canada, and it's sponsored by Chicago Title Insurance Company. So thank you to them for doing that. So there are nominees at each local event, and it's all peer nominated too. So I was recognized. My name was put forth by somebody I've worked alongside for the last few years, and they were kind enough to put me up to it, which was great. So following that, from there, people are shortlisted and they submit more information on their career and achievements and a bit of an application package to move to the next step. From that, there's a judging panel that selects a final 8 nominees, and then we are, invited to go to the real estate forum in Toronto and participate in sessions and listen into everything. And then, they announced the winner at the end. So again, like I said, peer nominated. So that was really meaningful to get the nod for that. And then an industry panel of judges selected the sub-finalists, and then ultimately me as the winner. So it was really exciting and definitely a high point in my career to date. So
that's fantastic. Well, taking a step back, you studied communications and media studies at MacEwan. So did you have any idea of where you wanted your career to go in those early days?
I did, and it was not commercial real estate. So it's
Okay.
ironic that we're sitting here today and discussing this. But initially, I wanted to be a book editor, and that really stemmed from a passion for reading and enjoying writing and everything. But I was about 2 years into my degree, and life had other plans, so I had to leave school and ultimately found my way to commercial real estate, and as mentioned, started off as a tenant coordinator for a large retail landowner here in the city. Stepped into brokerage, spent a few years with the team, and then ultimately made the jump to Aspen Properties just about 3 years ago. And Yeah, it's been a weird ride and definitely not something that I started out with the intention of getting into, but I've kind of found my way to this point and just been completely blown away by the opportunity that exists in this industry and how it seems like all kinds of people, all walks of life, everybody's got a different story, and it doesn't seem like anybody who works in commercial real estate ultimately planned on it, but somehow we've all found our way
Mhm.
to here, and here we are. So
That's definitely a recurring theme of some of our guests is that yeah, everyone has a different pathway into the industry, which is also pretty neat. So you'd mentioned there, prior to joining Aspen, you'd worked in tenant coordination and then in a brokerage environment. So what would you say were the main takeaways from those experiences that you've been able to carry through to your work on the landlord side at Aspen?
the biggest skill, the biggest theme that translates is that of customer or client service. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what part of the business I've worked in. It really comes down to either you're making your clients happy, you're making your owners happy, or you're making your tenants happy, depending on, of course, what piece of the business you're working in. It's interesting too, because I think that there's a real, not a misconception, but maybe not an understanding fully of how important customer service continues to be at every stage in your career. And it doesn't really matter what piece you're working in, whether you're client facing like I am as a leasing manager, or if you're in the back end and you're working on the accounting side or evaluation behind the scenes or whatever it might be. People tend to think they leave that theme maybe behind once they step out of their typical customer service entry level role and really get into their career. But I would say the most successful people in this industry have that real client, customer, tenant focus, and that is ultimately guiding all of their decisions and their actions day to day.
Well, for anyone that's unfamiliar, what can you tell us about Aspen Properties and their unique approach?
Yeah, so Aspen Properties, so we are a locally owned and operated, privately held company with properties in both Calgary and Edmonton. So we are Alberta based, Alberta bred, Alberta focused through and through. And we own and manage approximately 4.2 million square feet of office space in both Calgary and Edmonton, and have redeveloped a number of market leading assets since we were formed 25 years ago. So this is actually our 25th year of existence, which is really exciting. The key differentiator of Aspen is that we're always striving to provide the highest value proposition to our tenants, and we employ leading edge technology to better serve them and optimize operations and management of the buildings. So it's really important to us to be the leader in building amenities and the best tenant experience that we can possibly provide. From that, you can help to support and improve corporate culture of tenants. You can help to attract and retain great talent for your tenants, and you can help get people back into the office, which is really a key thing that I think our industry is really focused on right now, is trying to navigate that return to the office hybrid schedule, who wants to be in, who doesn't. Our company is really passionate about investing and innovating for the purpose of improving that experience for our partners and the people that occupy them. So Aspen's fantastic. Like they're such a great company to work for, and we definitely have that boutique approach to how we work on things. And we've been able to see a huge amount of growth and success in the last few years. And the key things that we really focus on is highly amenitized buildings. And that's something that I really do believe we are the market leader in Alberta for. And we're doing things in our properties that you just don't see elsewhere. We were one of the first in Edmonton to do a really great fitness facility in one of our buildings, to offer golf simulators to tenants at no additional charge. All of these things that make being at work fun. It's not just you come in, you do your job, you go home. You come in, maybe you work out at lunch, maybe you hit the golf sim with some of your colleagues after work or with a client, and it enriches people's lives. So we're really, really focused on that. It's not just here's your office go. It's how do we help elevate your brand, your business, your tenant experience day to day to help make your life better. And Aspen's been a great company to work for, and they treat everybody from highest to lowest position with respect and with grace, and they're fantastic. We have a lot of long-term employees too, because they do such a good job at taking really great care of us. So
yeah, thank you. And how I mentioned your portfolio in your bio, but do you mind describing your portfolio for our listeners?
yeah, of course. So as I mentioned, we've got buildings in both Calgary and Edmonton, and I'm based in Edmonton. I'm focused on Edmonton. So I've got 3 office buildings up here in the city, and they're all downtown. So around 875,000 square feet, and our properties are Class A and AA buildings. So we're located right in the heart of the financial district, right on the steps of the ice district. Like, I can look out my window right now, and if I threw something really hard, I could probably hit Rogers. So we're right there, which is really, really great. In our buildings, and I mentioned this already, like, we have a fantastic fitness facility. We've got great golf simulator that's available for tenants, locker facilities, towel service, bike storage. Our building was one of the first to be dog-friendly office tower in downtown Edmonton too. So at any given day, you can see as you're walking through the lobby, people are bringing their dogs into the office, which is just fun. We love that. And we're also adding another tenant amenity this year in one of our other properties in MNP Tower. So another golf simulator, cool lounge, fireplace, like, just another place for tenants to go and hang out that's not the office or the lobby or a conference room, somewhere else that they can go to work and socialize and get away from their desk for a little bit if they need to, or hold events if they're doing a team building or a client event. You don't have to go rent out a hotel room or a private room in a restaurant. You can utilize the space in the building to do so. So yeah, we've got a great property, and we're constantly investing in them and trying to make them better, and just really looking for ways to be different and elevate that tenant experience every day. So
that's great. So turning to, I guess, your role as a leasing manager, and I'm sure maybe this isn't possible to answer so easily, but what does a typical week look like for you as a leasing manager at Aspen?
I can't help but laugh a little bit when I think of this question, because there is no typical week. Like, every week is a little bit different, right? Our industry is so cyclical. So certainly some weeks more than others, you're loaded up with leasing tours, one right after another, where we're bringing through prospective tenants through the building, putting our best foot forward to make sure that we're doing all we can to show them why they need to be in an Aspen property. Meeting with lots of brokers, there's a lot of networking that happens too in our industry. So just staying on top of who's in the market, what market news is happening, like who's doing deals where, just, lots of relationship building too. So definitely spend a significant amount of time out in the commercial real estate community, not just raising, our image, but also the image of the properties too. So lots of that. Our team is very busy as well too. So I'm the only leasing person up here in Edmonton. The rest of my team is based in Calgary. So there's a pretty significant amount of time that we spend on calls and, working together to figure out the finer points of language or budgets or leases or marketing strategy or show suites, whatever it is that we might be working on. So it's funny because most days and most weeks pass by in a bit of a blur. You come in Monday morning, and then it seems like you look up and it's Thursday afternoon, and you're like, I don't even know what I've done this week, but I know I've done a lot this week. So yeah, it's all over the map for sure, but it's exciting, and no 2 days are the same. So
I could certainly relate. Well, I mean, a big reason why we started this podcast is to showcase the different career paths in the industry. And so for any listeners that are curious about what it's like to be a leasing manager on the landlord side, I think that's a really great answer. But to build on that, like, what's the most enjoyable and perhaps also the most challenging aspects of the role?
There are many, honestly. Like I really, and many enjoyable parts of the role. Like I honestly am really happy with this role. Like I didn't ever, and I mentioned this earlier, I didn't ever set out with the intention of getting into commercial real estate. And I'm somebody that, I mean, I didn't finish university. My parents are blue collar. Like this is the first kind of foray into a business type of role in industry, I guess, in my family. And um, it's funny, if you would have said to me a decade ago I'd be a leasing manager for a downtown office, I would laugh in your face because there's no way, right? Like I just couldn't imagine it. So with that said, honestly, the biggest part of the job that I enjoy is twofold. It's the problem solving, because it's problem solving all day, every day, right? Like you're trying to figure out how to win a deal or negotiate the finer points of a lease, or get a tenant moved in time because they've got a tight window and we only have a few months before things get crazy for them. And then it's the relationship building, and I mentioned that earlier. It's so much of our success comes from our partnerships that we have, whether it's with brokers or with tenants coming in, or designers to build a fantastic amenity or redo the exterior of a building. Like it just, you talk to so many people and you get to learn so many things about their work and what makes them tick and how you can work together, and it's so much fun. It's great. As for the challenges, yeah, honestly, it's time management really feels like being a thing. I always make the joke, if I could clone myself, that would be fantastic. And if anybody's got any leads on a cloning machine, like, it doesn't need to be great, I just need somebody, that would be awesome. So lots of competing priorities, and having to make firm boundaries about time, and dedicating specific head down time to tasks when maybe you'd love to be out golfing or something like that, or at a tournament. You have to make those decisions sometimes, because ultimately you have to get the work done. That would really be the biggest thing, I think. And then, like I said, boundaries, and making sure that you're showing up for your role and you're showing up in the industry in a way that doesn't compromise your personal life, your health, your integrity, all of these things. So navigating my way through it as time goes, for sure. So
well, if we can get into the weeds just a little regarding the technical aspects of things like lease negotiation and lease administration, like, what are some of the more common negotiating points that you experience, and how do you approach these?
yeah, it's a really good question. And it's honestly, like, each lease is different. It really depends on what the tenant's focus is. What are they most concerned with? I would say what I'm hearing of most lately would be items related to insurance. Like, if you're really getting into the technical pieces of the lease, just trying to figure out insurance coverage and minimums, and indemnities and releases and things like that. Part of that challenge might be because that's not my background. So we do work closely with our partners who are much more skilled and expertise in this area to help navigate through that. But it really seems to be that's the biggest thing that companies and tenants are looking at right now. And I think too, that's a result of us coming out of the last 3 years. We all had some significant challenges and stress and late nights, and we just want to make sure that our companies and ourselves were moving forward in a way that we feel comfortable with and safe with, whatever that might be. So you have your finer points. Of course, you negotiate on rent and allowances and free rent and things like that, but that's all pretty standard. It just seems to be trying to help tenants feel comfortable with proceeding with a long-term commitment at a time when we're really coming out of a huge amount of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Sure.
That sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Well, in general, again, for anyone unfamiliar, you're in Edmonton. You're our first guest from Alberta, as I mentioned. Like, how is the Edmonton office market? Who are the main occupiers of space? And kind of a three-part question: what are the challenges and opportunities for the sector?
Yeah, so Alberta is honestly, it is I know this is a very Albertan thing to say, and I feel like I have a duty to say it, being the first Albertan on the podcast, but Alberta is a fantastic place to do business. Like we're really lucky here. We've got such an entrepreneurial spirit, and our cost of living is way lower than it is in other areas. So, we really have a very bright-eyed, optimistic, hard work, anything is possible sort of attitude, which is good because our office vacancy in Edmonton is not good. It's quite high, so we're sitting at around 20% right now, and that's really, I mean, that's every office market across Canada, I think, has gone through this over the last few years. And, you're seeing vacancy rates climb as tenants look at downsizing or putting space up for sublease, or, say, hey, we actually are designating our entire staff to be remote. We no longer need this space. So it's really an exercise of, I think, downsizing and right sizing for a lot of companies. I always joke that I would love to have a crystal ball, and if I did, I would be in good shape right now. But the constant thing is uncertainty when we look at what the next couple of years looks like. But I do think 20%. I mean, we are sitting a little bit high, but with that said, you're really seeing a flight to quality happen in our market as well too. So the properties that are in good locations with great amenities, landlords that invest in their properties and take a client or tenant focused approach have done well. And luckily we're able to say that we had a great year last year, and we're on track. It's early in this one, but we've had a great start to the year as well too. So Edmonton's kind of funny too, because we had, for anybody who's not familiar, there's a main street that kind of runs east to west. It's called Jasper Avenue, and it used to be the heart of downtown. It's where you had all the buildings on and banks, and everybody was kind of set up on that strip. Well, since the Ice District was introduced and Rogers Place was built, it's really migrated from Jasper Ave about, I'd say 4 blocks north of that, to be kind of focused around the Ice District. So with that, we've really seen a change in our market, and those properties that kind of sat along Jasper Ave haven't done as great as the ones that are located right by the Ice District. So it's really a time of transformation for our market right now. There's a lot of shifting happening as the landlords that are well positioned are taking advantage, and the ones that maybe aren't are reinventing and investing in their properties and doing what they can to remain attractive. And I mean, our downtown right now too, this is a huge topic of conversation, is safety and security. And that seems to really be the conversation in every downtown across Canada, or even North America, you could say. There's some socioeconomic challenges that are really evident when you look at the streets downtown here. And there's a lot of work happening between, your commercial properties, your partners, your thought leaders, community leaders, and then also with police and security forces to try to make downtown feel good again and make it feel safe again, so people are more inclined to come back down to the office. So,
to what extent do you consider a company's values when making a career decision or choosing a business partner? The values that we embody at Highview Partners are integral to everything that we do. Be the best, do what's right, force for good, and enjoy the journey. Guide every step of our process and influence our actions and behaviors. This podcast series was inspired by the value, enjoy the journey. This means bringing people together, building meaningful relationships within our industry, and giving back to the communities that we care deeply about. For more information, please visit us at highviewpartners.ca.
Audrey, outside of your day job, you're active with CREW as part of the Future Leaders Committee. And as we heard earlier, you've been recognised for your work with diversity, equity and inclusion at Aspen. So what do you mind sharing about this work and what it means to you?
Yeah, this is something that I was just saying the other day. This work is so meaningful to me. Like, outside of enjoying my role day to day, it's important to me to do what I can to make the industry maybe a little bit easier for people to get into, or a little bit more accepting of diversity. So it's probably no surprise to anybody who's listening to the podcast, but we definitely, in commercial real estate, we definitely do have a need for more diversity, and the benefits that come from that. So early on in my career, I got tapped on the shoulder to join CREW, which is Commercial Real Estate Women. And our local Edmonton chapter is really fantastic. There are so many wonderful women in it, and it's really, it seems as though it just transcends kind of those professional relationships. Like this group is really committed to raising up each other and to celebrating success and opening doors and doing what we can, even across like competitor lines. Like I know I could pick up the phone and call, one of my fellow CREW people that works at the building across the street, and she will, have a real conversation with me about the market or deals or whatever it might be. So getting involved with them early was crucial, and then also further involvement through the Future Leaders Committee. So with that, I am co-chair with one of my fellow CREW members here, and our goal is to get more women involved in commercial real estate. And not just women, we've kind of even expanded that out to be people of color as well too. So we work primarily with I'd say the university community, with students, with people who are maybe in their first few years of their career. And we've even expanded that out to new partnerships with people that are doing work in this space with high school students. So, going to university is a privilege, not afforded to everybody. And by the time you're in your third or fourth year, if you're in business, you probably already know about real estate, and that's great. But what about the people that maybe can't afford university or don't know that real estate is an option in their first or second year when they're trying to figure it out? So through our work, we, get in front of these students and present an alternate option, and, hopefully incent them to consider commercial real estate as a future career. So, it's something that it means so much to me. And when I started out, I was one of the only women in the room, and then also one of the only, if not the only, Indigenous person in the room. So to be able to get women to come up and to apply and to get jobs, and people of color to do the same thing, it's really meaningful, and it makes it a safe space for the next generation and the next generation, and so on and so forth. So it's really meaningful to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. At Aspen, you initiated an ideas committee. Scott had mentioned it in the panel in Toronto, and I thought it was really neat. But like, what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so the IDEA Committee is the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Committee, and it's something that we all founded. I want to say there was 8 of us that came together, and it was May 2020, in the wake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's murders, that there was a lot of us that were just like, we need somewhere to talk about this. Like, this is troubling, and how can we reckon with this as a society, as people that know people of color? Like, how do we do something meaningful rather than just, make an Instagram post and that's it? How do we transcend from caring and an action that might just be performative into something real and something tangible? And how do we actually drive change? And we looked around, and we didn't see many people in the space, like in our space, doing that. And we were like, you know what, let's make something here for Aspen, because I guarantee you, if the 8 of us are feeling this way, we can't possibly be the only ones. So yeah, we decided to make a committee and come together with the intent to have meaningful discussions about these issues of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. To look at our company realistically and say, how are we doing? To look for ways to create opportunities for people that maybe haven't had them, whether that's, an inclusion opportunity that, people felt that they couldn't participate in because they didn't look like everybody else, or, an equity opportunity where, somebody wanted to do something but couldn't put their hand up for it because maybe they weren't empowered to do so. And through our committee, we have had quite a few successful events, and we really take an education and opportunity lens. So lots of educational material goes out to our staff internally on things like Black History Month, on Women's Day, on Truth and Reconciliation Day, or if there's any specific events that happen that kind of fit in our lens. We've had a few successful events as well too. So hosting on Truth and Reconciliation Day a few years ago, we hosted a troupe of powwow dancers in our lobby at one of our projects in Calgary, and they had a ceremony. They displayed all the different kinds of powwow dancing. There were drums, there were music, there was prayer. Like, it was a really beautiful ceremony. And, just looking for opportunities to get involved with causes that are important to, not just the committee, but to our staff's hearts, and look for ways to support them. So it's been something that has been a huge, I think, benefit, not just for our Aspen staff, but for our tenants to see as well too, because we know that they're starting to have these conversations, and we know that this is something that's growing in importance for tenants and businesses as they look to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to do better. And we need to make space for people that aren't here, people that haven't historically been here, or people that feel excluded. And I mean, it's definitely something you see and hear a lot of now. And I think that the key thing is you don't want it to just be a buzzword and a performative LinkedIn post or something like that. It needs to be real action. And we've been lucky enough to have a great group behind us to help execute that, and have some conversations, and hopefully be a leader in our field on that respect. So
yeah, well, it sounds like you are. It's really powerful stuff. Big kudos. Well, we discussed on our calls ahead of our chat today that there's some really exciting things happening in Edmonton with respect to Indigenous-led partnerships for employment and training, which I don't think we see here in Vancouver, quite frankly. So what do you mind sharing about your own story, and perhaps speak to the work that's happening in the city?
Yeah, so clearly something I'm passionate about, just given the last question that we talked about. So I mentioned this earlier. I'm Indigenous, so I am a Satu Dene Sekli, which is our Dene language word for woman. I'm from Treaty 11 territory, which is very, very, very far up north. It's around Great Bear Lake. So if anybody's familiar with the Northwest Territories, it's extremely far north. And I'm the first generation in my family to not go to residential school, to not have to be subjected to that system. And that's really not because it ended, but because we moved away from that area when I was a little kid. Those schools were still operational, and I'm 35, so I'm not that old. So being Indigenous, but having those kind of legacy scars of the generational trauma of it not being okay to be Indigenous was something that really kind of colored my childhood and early adulthood. And it's really only been in the last few years that I've been like, wait a minute, this is me, this is who I am, and that's cool. Like, I should embrace this. We never talked about it as a family when I was a kid. It was just never something that we discussed. And once I kind of acknowledged that history and that background, and what mom and grandma went through, and the fact that I'm a band member, that it's incredible, it's powerful, and it's something to be celebrated. I think if anybody, people of color, especially Indigenous people in this country, like, we've got not to make it a super political answer, but there's a very long history that Indigenous people have suffered under here in Canada. And I'd encourage your listeners, if this is something they don't know anything about, there's a lot of really fantastic resources and learning opportunities that exist that are free, just to educate yourselves, because it's, something that we think as Canada, we don't have a race problem. We very much do. And this, it just happens to be this field, I think, versus what you see elsewhere. So yeah, anyways, being Indigenous, being in real estate, it's kind of an interesting, at moments, there's kind of an adversarial view, I think, in the Indigenous community and commercial real estate, just given some of this history. But there's incredible opportunity, absolutely incredible opportunity for, good careers, good jobs, wealth generation, the ability to become self-sufficient and to ensure wealth for future generations. And it's something that, there's a lot of work being done, as you mentioned. So I'm lucky to be part of a committee, and it's called the Creating Career Pathways in Commercial Real Estate Committee. It's set up through BOMA Edmonton, and we're still in our first year and still putting together some programming and looking for ways to help support the mission. But really, it's about creating opportunity, creating chances for this community that historically hasn't had a lot of them, to get involved in this incredibly powerful, wealth generating industry that can secure things for the future. So yeah, there's a lot of work happening, and I mean, Edmonton's got a pretty visible and pretty large Indigenous community, so there's certainly a lot of interest from all stakeholders, and looking for ways that we can partner and try to maybe right some historic wrongs that nobody maybe is directly responsible for anymore, but an opportunity to do something better for future generations. So
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'll put a link to that group in the show notes for the podcast, so people can kind of check it out. But yeah, Audrey, you're a leader in this, and it's amazing. So yeah, keep going with it, because it's lots of opportunities and benefits to hopefully come from it. I mean, I think we were chatting on our call. One of my observations sitting in a room of 2,500 people at the real estate forum was, like overwhelmingly how sort of male and white the industry is, and certainly the decision makers in the industry. And I think just the importance of somebody being able to kind of look upon that room of people and identify themselves. I don't think it's really there yet, so there's so much room to go, but yeah, it's certainly going to be people like yourself that are part of that change. So that's really amazing. Looking forward, with respect to your career and your goals, without kind of sharing where you want to be in 5 years, but yeah, what are your thoughts about where you'd like to take this? Because I think the sky's the limit. So yeah, what are the thoughts?
This is a good question, because I don't even really know, to be honest.
Okay.
It's I like I said earlier, I never started out in commercial, with the intent of getting into commercial real estate. I've just kind of found my way into a position and then went, wow, this is great. I want to learn more. What's the next step? And going from there. And the sky is absolutely the limit, like you said. I'm constantly amazed by how much more I have to learn. Every day I'm learning something new. And I mean, I've been in this now for close to 10 years. And it's, some days I'm like, I feel like I know absolutely nothing at all. I have so much more to learn about this. How did this person do that deal? Or, how are they so great at prospecting? What are they doing? So I'm really just very much living in the moment and have a lot of work in front of me in terms of space getting leased up in our buildings, and just really seeing what I can do to really make sure Aspen's kind of the market leader. And I'm I don't know, you mentioned this earlier, and it's something that I struggle with, and just in the interest of being really vulnerable about it, because I find that is something that is lacking, is that it feels like we're all kind of imposter syndrome. Like we all feel like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I shouldn't be here. I don't know how to do this, but we do. And when I look at the future, I really think about okay, just keep going, see what happens. The path unfolds as you walk along it. And, if you're being genuine, if you're being vulnerable, if you're being honest, if you're being your hardworking self, you will find your way, whatever it is, whatever the opportunity is that you might be chasing. And, I honestly, I have no idea where I'm going to wind up. I'm just having fun along the way right now, and we'll see where I'm meant to go, and that will be where I go. So.
Well, that my last question was about the advice that you would have for anyone starting out in the industry, but I think you've almost answered that question there, just in terms of like, yeah, being true to yourself and keep your head down and be open to experiences and kind of see where it goes. I think a lot of people, certainly chasing that next title or that bigger paycheck or whatever it might be, but I certainly encourage younger younger folks in the industry to certainly be patient. Like, you have a long road ahead, and good things will come if you sort of stay true to yourself. But I'll turn it over to you if there's any sort of a final word on parting words of wisdom for, I mean, maybe the twist on the question would be like, is there any advice or words of advice that you would give to yourself, like looking back, that you maybe didn't have at the time?
Yeah, you know what, this is a really interesting question, and it's something that I feel very grateful to have been asked this by junior people in the industry. And it's funny because I say junior people, I'm still a junior person, but people that maybe started a year or two after me, and we talk and we try to figure out life and figure out our jobs and what we're doing and what's next and how to be that person in the room. But the biggest piece of advice that I would share for anybody starting out in this industry, if you're kind of 5 years and under, is it's all about relationships. Relationships are key. Doesn't matter what brokerage you work for, what role you're in, what year of your career you're in, what asset class. It's all about relationships, whether that's with your colleagues, with the people in your firm or in your network, or with your prospective tenants or clients. You need to build those relationships, and you do that through integrity, through following through on what you say you're going to do, through being honest, through being yourself. Like, that's really the thing. Like, nobody's interested in a robot. Nobody's interested in what you think you should be. Just be you. We need more people that are unapologetically genuine in themselves, and doing that, being yourself, honestly, and like working hard, you can go anywhere you want and build a name for yourself outside of maybe just the firm or the team you work for. Get to be known for being someone who follows through, who if you don't know the answer, find it. Get known for finding the answer, or doing your best to find an answer, for being yourself. That's really the biggest thing. Be yourself. Don't sacrifice who you are or what you're into, or how you engage with things to try to chase a role that maybe you should be a certain way. No, just be you. We need more of you in the world. And yeah, work hard. That's it. The industry rewards hard work for sure. So if you really apply yourself, and if you put your hand up for opportunities and you try to learn and you try to grow, like you absolutely will find your way. And piece of advice for myself would really be to believe in yourself, especially as women. Like, I think, just to speak to the women on who might be listening, and to speak to the people in my network who are women or women identifying. It's like, we don't think we're qualified to be there because we don't really see a lot of people that look like us doing these roles or in these roles that we want to get into. So you need to believe in yourself that you can do it, that you're just as good as the guys. You're just as smart as the guys. You can absolutely do that role. Like, it's not rocket science, and we're not saving babies. Like, nobody dies if we make a mistake. It's okay. Just pick yourself up again, learn the lesson that you need to from it, and try again. Do not be afraid to try again, because that's what they're doing. Why can't you do it too? So that would be the biggest piece I think I'd leave behind. So
no, thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time and sort of sharing your story. I'm really excited to watch where your career goes, Audrey, and keeping in touch. So thanks again.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers podcast brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.